everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Horns Report here on KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Billy Gates, and we're here, to, of course, to talk about the Texas Longhorns' 29-21 loss to the Florida Gators in the Swamp in Gainesville, Florida on Saturday. Pretty tough one to handle. One of those games where I don't really think the final score indicated how far apart the teams were. It kind of seemed like Florida dominated this game from start to finish on the line of scrimmage, but that's just one man's opinion. Here with me to talk about it is Roger Wallace, KXAN sports director and color analyst for the Longhorn Radio Network. So Roger, like, we watched the same thing. You watched it live from the Swamp there in Gainesville. It just sort of seemed like Florida had everything going and Texas did not.
Yeah, it was weird because, as you said, it was an 8-point game, and it kind of reminded me of Ohio State when you think about Texas had the ball at the end of the game. Now, it was desperation, but they did have the ball to get a touchdown to tie it. Texas had the ball, get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to tie it here. But you're right, it felt like Florida outplayed Texas in just about every phase. And the most critical part of that was what Steve Sarkisian said right off the bat, and that was the line play. This is the first drive. Offensive line for Florida had their way with Texas. Defensive line for Florida had their way with Texas. Arch Manning under constant pressure. Running backs did virtually nothing trying to run the ball, and I think that's what gave that glazed over look to Longhorn fans. And Arch, 6 sacks, I think 8 more hurries, and that was kind of the story of the ball game, which is kind of the story of the SEC. You better have line play.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's not like Texas didn't know that going in, but they certainly, for lack of a better term, found out the hard way. Because Florida, they'd been scuffling a little bit. Like, that defense had been pretty good. Florida's offense had been inconsistent, but golly gee, DJ Lagway found his stride against the Texas defense that everybody thought was unstoppable almost.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I had a hunch that Florida was going to get right at some point, and they did it against Texas. It was an amazing atmosphere, Billy, because there was a sense in that stadium, even when they were winning, that fan base wants a coaching change to the point where they're winning and maybe a decision to run the ball on 3rd and long or not put the pedal to the metal, and all of a sudden we're hearing boos inside the stadium from the Florida fans, and they're going to get their biggest win of the season by far, probably their biggest win in a couple of years. And so that kind of tells you where that fan base is. But yeah, they put it together. You mentioned their defense. It has been good. Even in the losses, it's been good. Against Miami, they were right there until the last half of the fourth quarter. Miami had 13 points. LSU, well documented, they scored 20 points despite DJ Lagway getting picked 5 times. And South Florida, they won at the Swamp. They scored 18 points to do it. Defense hasn't been the problem, but the offense came up with big plays, explosive plays, and whether that was a product of them finally getting it right or the Texas defense getting exposed, no Malik Muhammad, and they clearly picked on the side where Muhammad would be, and it paid off.
Yeah, and Steve Sarkisian in Monday's press conference addressed Malik Muhammad's absence, and he said, like when you lose an All-American caliber, cover guy, you're gonna have to make stuff up somehow. They tried to split safety look, but then Florida ran the ball so well with Jaden Baugh that they had to come out of that. They had to put more guys in the box, go to more man coverage, and then that's when Dallas Wilson, the amazing freshman receiver from Florida, got loose, and he just goes for 6 catches, $111 with 2 touchdowns. I mean, just kind of seemed like when something wasn't working for Florida, they would easily go to something else.
Yeah, they had the answers to the test, and Texas didn't. Texas missed. And again, long ball game, but that first play of the game, Grayson Littleton with a big-time hit, ball squirts loose. Michael Taft's momentum takes him past the ball. Florida recovers it, and they go on to drive for the opening score. Texas recovers that. They're in Florida scoring territory. If Florida gets down in this game, I think that crowd turns on them pretty quickly, but obviously none of that happened, and Texas couldn't take advantage. They had the double pass to Ryan Wingo to Jack Endries and overshot him by about a half a yard. Or that's a walk-in touchdown. But again,
for real,
those are just close plays that happen to every team in the span of 120 plays in a ball game.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the double pass missed for the walk-in touchdown. Arch also had one to Emmett Mosley that he overshot him by about 5 yards when there was nobody within about 15, 20 yards of Mosley, him playing in his first game of the season, coming off an injury. We'll back up a little bit. Let's just go over some numbers real quick for Florida. DJ Lagwitz, we talked about a tremendously talented quarterback, really showed it against the Longhorns. 21 of 28 passing for 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, both of those to Dallas Wilson, and an interception. Jaden Baugh, we mentioned 27 carries for 107 yards. Gosh, and with a touchdown, and it really looked like early in the game when he was getting 6, 7, 8 yards a carry, it really looked like he was going to go for, I don't know, 150 or 200, but eventually Texas kind of bottled him up, but then, that's when they started hitting Wilson, and he goes off 6 for 111, and then Vernell Brown has 3 catches for 72 yards along as 60, so the Texas defense just gave up way too many explosive plays, and I think Sarkisian addressed that in the press conference as well, and it was just... it's kind of a clinic by an offensive clinic by Florida, and a defensive one too. Like it was definitely it was a type of game, Roger, that Steve Sarkisian wants Texas to play in a lot of ways, right?
Sure, yeah. Be balanced, hit explosive plays, be able to run when you have to run, and that's the one thing that I always say about what Sark says about a balanced attack. Doesn't mean you run it 40 times and you throw it 40 times. It means when you need to run the ball and everybody knows you're going to run the ball, you have the ability to run the ball, and they couldn't do that. So then you throw them out of balance. So then Florida front starts to tee off. They brought a lot of pressure on Arch Manning. Longhorns kept running backs in. Sometimes the running backs just got overpowered on blitzes. And, Manning had Mosley, but Manning also had a rusher right in his face.
Yeah, he did.
And I think that took something away from that throw. But he took a beating, and Sark talked about it. And I was doing our SEC show, and in a crazy way, call me crazy, but when it's all said and done, I thought that was probably his best game, all things considered, for the first 5, considering the defense he was up against, the circumstances of the game, being on the road, the ability to still make some plays, even though there was all that pressure. Sure, he missed throws, but the touchdown to Wingo was an example.
That was a great throw.
Yeah, he got out of trouble. Instead of taking off, he stayed with it and found Wingo in the back of the end zone. Had to put a little touch on it. So in that regard, but not good enough. He threw 2 picks as well, and then you can't take that safety at the end. You got to throw the ball away. You got to do something so you don't have to hope you get one more tick on the clock. But. Maybe this game will pay off down the road for Arch on the road, because guess where his third start is away from home? Cotton Bowl against Oklahoma. Not a true road game, but it's going to be the craziest environment he's ever been in because of the circumstances of the way that that game is constructed.
And against a really good Sooners team, too. And we'll get to them in a second. I want to back up a little bit to the defense, Florida's defense, pressuring Arch, being able to kind of forget about Texas' running game because it was so non-existent. 6 sacks, like we've been saying. 8 quarterback hurries. They broke up 3 passes. They had 2 picks, 7 tackles for loss. So I think they were in the backfield a bunch, and a lot of that was not having that balance in the offense, that running game, which Steve Sarkisian talked about at length in the press conference. And then we'll hear from Steve right now, and then we'll talk about how they're going to fix this run game against quite literally the best defense in the SEC statistically in Oklahoma. So here's Coach Sarkisian about how they kind of fix this run game.
It's not working, that's for sure. That's what's going on. Not to put it as simple as that. It just hasn't hit, and we've been Rolodexing running backs. I think that's a little bit of an issue. A lot of times when you have a runner, which traditionally for us, we've kind of got that lead runner and then a second runner. The lead runner starts to find a rhythm with the timing of the blockers, and we don't have that right now. And we got to fight to get there as fast as we can, because I do think there's something to be said about a runner getting carries. And I know you guys have been mad at me before. Why does one guy get all the carries and then there's a number 2 guy? Well, there's a reason for that. I think there's rhythm and timing into running the ball. Now, do we need to block better? Yes. Do we need to game plan better? Yes. Do we need to break more tackles? Yes. All those things add up to, we don't have a run by our running backs over 18 yards. We've been spotty from a consistency standpoint in the run game. And that's what we're fighting for, and so it's easy just to put our hands in there and say we can't run it and let's go throw it every down. I just don't believe in that's not who we are. So we're going to continue to work at this thing. Hopefully we're better on Saturday. We'll find out.
That's a pretty crazy stat, Roger, where the Texas hasn't had a running back with a run of not even over 20 yards, of 18 yards. And, typically, like we've seen these Sarkisian teams in the past, when that's what they hang their hat on is running the ball and having explosive running plays. I hadn't dove that deep into the stats until I believe it was Anwar Richardson that mentioned that stat, and then Steve kind of repeated it there. But that's pretty wild to me.
Yeah, because you got to get some explosive plays out of the run game. Yeah, you want to be able to, get those tough yards, 4, 5, 6, 7. I always think about the late, great Cedric Benson, and he would always turn 2 into 4, 4 into 6, 6 into maybe 9. And that means he's either pushing the pile, showing great balance, showing great patience. And that's what we're not seeing from this Texas run game. They're not getting much more than they get. In other words, if they're not getting any push, they're not getting any yards. Now, Quintravian Wisner back wasn't effective at all. He was effective against a pretty good Ohio State front with 80-plus yards in the opener. But, yeah, that's the tough part. What do you do mid-season to help an offensive line where you've rolled in a couple of left guards and that hasn't really paid off? You've had a lot of penalties, pre-snap penalties. And
had 6 of them against the Gators last week, 5 of which were in the second half.
Second half, yeah. And I think 2 in a row.
Right.
So all of a sudden, 1st and 10s, 1st and 20. You just can't make a living like that. So I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. If it's a pride thing, if it's a scheme thing, if he changes the way he calls plays to kind of protect him a little bit.
Right.
But they still got a lot of football. And you talk about, everything's still in front of them. Yes. Yeah. But also they're 3-2.
Yeah.
With a tough 7-game run here of, show me a gimme win. And I'll tell you, Arkansas is still explosive because I know that's the first the first answer people are going to say.
Exactly.
So, and on the flip side, maybe they figure some things out and get on a little roll. And I always said, if Texas had beat Florida and lose to Oklahoma, there's not a great feeling coming out of the Cotton Bowl.
Not at all.
So flip it. If Texas loses at Florida, come back, beat an Oklahoma team, pretty good feeling coming out of the Cotton Bowl, and you have the same record. Now, we'll see if that can happen.
Sure.
Roger logic may not work in the real world.
No. I mean, all of a sudden you're in good graces with fans, especially, and then maybe all the offensive line questions from the media, which I believe was the first 4 questions today in the press conference, was about that old line.
Yeah. Sark started it with his statement. Line of scrimmage.
Yeah. So Texas rushes for a season low 52 yards against the Gators.
Most of that from March.
And 37 of it from March. Yeah. And this is an interesting kind of detail. The stat: 15 attempts, mostly scrambles, obviously. 37 yards with a long of 36. Ooh, that's not typically a recipe for success. Quintravian Wisner, who's back in action for the first time since August 30th, since the Ohio State game, the season opener, 8 carries, 11 yards. He had a short touchdown, but it is just one of those things where they couldn't get him going. CJ Baxter out with a hamstring injury. No telling if he's going to be ready for the Oklahoma game. We're going to find out how ready he may be on Wednesday when the first iteration of the injury report comes out for the Southeastern Conference. So we'll be patiently waiting for that. So, I mean, if they're able to have both their lead backs back, right? So CJ Baxter, Quintravian Wisner, they still have to figure out this line of scrimmage. Nick Brooks played his first action against Florida, had a couple of those false start penalties back to back, turned a 2nd and 7 into like a 2nd and 17 or something like that. He looked okay for his first time out, but it's this kind of mix and match offensive line, Roger. it's tough to build chemistry that way with not only the running backs but also the line itself.
Yeah, and it's funny when you look at the storylines coming into the season, and if you do it, and I compare national to local because I think this is legitimate this year because of the Arch Manning factor. I think nationally, everybody assumed with Arch Manning and what they had coming back on defense that this was the #1 team in the country. I think locally, the questions kept coming about replacing 4 starters on the offensive line. And we hear that, yeah, they had guys that played a lot of snaps because they were able to use their depth, and a Trevor Gooseby who had to step in for Kelvin Banks. But still, that was the biggest question mark, I think, locally. And then they also knew that Arch Manning hadn't done as much in front of their eyes as for some reason the rest of the nation received it. So now what's the nation doing? They're hammering Arch. Why? Because they're the ones that put him on the pedestal, and they can't be wrong.
In the first place,
they can't be wrong, right? So it's got to be something with Arch, whereas maybe he's just a first-year starter that's played in 2 really tough environments, taken his lumps, and we'll see where it goes. But, yeah, the offensive line, and I think deep down the coaches knew that, okay, we got guys that have played snaps, but you're still replacing 4 guys on that offensive line that led them to the SEC championship game in the Final Four. And a lot of those guys led them to a Big 12 title in the Final Four. So it hasn't gone as well. He was asked today about the portal. He said a lot to do with the portal is what's available.
Right.
And, yeah, hindsight is easy. If there was a left guard out there that they could have grabbed.
No kidding, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, all the questions come up when things don't go well.
Right.
And so here we are.
Yeah. Kind of makes you appreciate guys like Jake Majors.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt.
Kind of makes you appreciate those guys. Kelvin Banks, obviously, and all those guys from last year that really built that cohesive unit up front. That was a Joe Moore finalist for 2 seasons. And and that was my biggest question coming into the season too, was that offensive line, and we're seeing it right now. So hopefully, at least for the Longhorns' sake, that they'll figure something out for the Red River Rivalry, which is coming up on Saturday, 2:30. I believe it's going to air on ABC. Is that the ABC, ESPN? One of those.
It's not on NBC, Billy. It's not my.
If it's not on KXAN's air,
or the CW, Pac-12
right,
After Dark,
right? Yeah,
ACC football.
Yeah, of course. Everybody watches this football in the CW.
I'm usually confident if fans want to find Texas football on TV, they'll find it.
They'll find it.
They're not hiding them.
They'll find it somewhere. Yeah, it's they'll find it. So let's kind of shift gears to Oklahoma. The big question everybody has, and Brent Venables addressed it after the Kent State win. They beat Kent State 44-0 or something silly last week. Who's going to play quarterback? Is it going to be John Mateer? Is it going to be Michael Hawkins Jr.? John Mateer, the tremendous transfer from Washington State, in his first year with Oklahoma, kind of taken the country by storm. A lot of folks, didn't really know his game, playing for the Cougars over there in Pullman, Washington, being part of that Pac-2 sort of conference as the Pac-12 rebuilds itself. But he landed in Norman, and I wouldn't say shocked because I've seen him play and I kind of know how good he is, but just sort of how he showed everybody else his skills running and throwing the football. He may not play. He had hand surgery, so Venables had told reporters after the Kent State game that he assumed that Mateer would not be available. Roger, if it is Michael Hawkins, we saw kind of a preview of that last year. Texas ran all over them, 38-3, something along those lines. Kind of feel like it's going to be a different Michael Hawkins this go around.
Yeah, and again, I'll go back to the defense for Oklahoma will make their quarterback better. But he did get the start. He played against Kent State. He took a little bit of time, but he finally got a touchdown pass to Isaiah Satania. That seemed to unlock a little things. If you watch the highlight, he threw it up, and Isaiah Satania caught it. But Hawkins, it's funny because he's the backup, but he's got the experience in this game, and Arch Manning doesn't. And he's obviously a mobile guy. But Sark's bigger concern was the scheme with Ben Arbuckle, who came with John Mateer.
Yeah.
and the fact that he'll put them in advantageous situations. And so Sark's so concerned about his offensive line and now his defensive line and blocking and tackling that I don't think Mateer, he's got a lot of Baker Mayfield in him.
Absolutely.
From if you've watched him, he's got some swagger, he's got some fire. He'll roll the dice a little bit, but if he had hand surgery last week, it does seem hard to imagine.
You'd think so, right?
That he would play. Sark said we're going to plan for him, but we're going to plan for the Arbuckle offense. But I think Hawkins will be in a much better place with what he has around him on Saturday, and he's coming in with confidence, and his team has so much confidence. And we know about how this game goes. Texas blew him out 3 years ago in Sark's second year, and then OU got him in a wild one. Texas blew him out last year. Yeah. So, we'll see. Texas, it's odd. They drop out of the top 25, and they're a 3-point, maybe 3.5-point favorite. Clearly, that's got to be the quarterback situation at Oklahoma.
You would think so, and that's kind of weird. The unranked team gets the favorite, but the folks in Vegas know what they're doing, right?
They're just trying to make money.
Yep, they know where the action.
They want the action. That's right.
They know where the action come from. Big thing for us media folks, Roger, is that the Cotton Bowl got renovated. So that will be interesting to see what kind of
yes, it did. Yes, it did.
See what kind
I've heard some positive reports about the renovation, and I think the press facilities improved a little bit. Another 2:30 game. We haven't seen that in a while until last year, and that adds a different element because you're rolling in there mid-morning as opposed to the when it's a little quieter, so you have to deal with. But if you've never been to that game, it is quite a spectacle on the State Fair of Texas grounds. In front of 92,000, they split it down the middle. So it is a game like no other.
And it's more with the 2:30 start. It's more acceptable in society to get a corny dog when you get there. You can't have an 8 a.m. corny dog.
You're not even eating for breakfast.
What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And all the other stuff. I don't know, what did you try last year?
I went with a corny dog, and then I had it was like a Mexican street corn kind of mix.
Well, that's no fun.
I know. I kind of stay in my lane.
No fried Reese cups or anything like that?
I mean, I've done a fried Oreo before, not at the State Fair of Texas, but I've done them before. Pretty good, like not bad. I try to stay away from that these days, But maybe this go around, I'll venture into more of the fried confectionery items instead of just a savory hot dog.
Players were asked about it. I don't think it's as much fun for them to talk about it after what happened 48 hours prior. At Florida, but it is there's so many Dallas-Fort Worth kids, and they get to spend a little time with their families after the game before heading back home. But you talk about a turning point in the season.
Yeah, it can
4-2 and 1-1, or 3-3 and 0-2 with two true road games to follow. This one's going to be interesting.
That's a huge difference. Yep. Huge difference. Well, Steve talked about what he enjoys about the Red River Rivalry, and now he's into his fifth one. So here's Steve talking about the rivalry game and all the fun that comes along with it.
And this is a great game. There's nothing about this game that is I love all aspects of it. I love it that it's a neutral site. I love that it's in Dallas. I love that it's a state fair. I love that both teams are in the same tunnel. I love that the crowd is split 50-50. I love that so many of our players have family coming. I don't love that there's some noise around how we're playing, but that's the reality of the situation. That's what we signed up to do. All that being said, we got to focus on us, and we need to be enamored with what we need to do from a preparation standpoint, an execution standpoint, a game plan standpoint, being intentional with our practice habits, things of that nature. And so, you lean into some of the veteran players who have been through this week before, who know what this week is about, and push your younger players or your new players that maybe have transferred into this is how we go about our business, because it is a great game.
And he's right. It is a great game, and it's interesting how he mentioned leaning into those veteran players for the younger guys to take advice from, things like that. And at least one of those veteran players, Michael Taft, was around for 5 and 7, so he kind of knows how to respond after some adversity. It's just kind of this is just such a cool game, Roger. I mean, I had my first experience with it live last season when we went up there, and my jaw was on the floor for pretty much the entire game.
If you're a college football fan, this is one you've circled. If you have any chance to get to, you're going to want to try to get this one. Mac Brown used to describe it as a midseason bowl game because of the pageantry around it. Now they don't really break routine; they'll go up Friday and do their thing and play the game and leave. But just because of there are some special events around it for alumni in Dallas and things like that for both Texas and Oklahoma. But, I remember this game as a non-conference game when Texas was in the Southwest Conference and OU was in the Big 8. And then everyone thought, wow, now it's going to be a conference game and it's going to be two South Division rivals. So this could be to knock the other one out of a potential championship game. Then they got rid of the divisions. And, of course, what happens in 2018, a stretch where it had been kind of rough for Texas, Texas finally wins, and they turn around and lose to OU in the Big 12 championship game at AT&T Stadium. So that great feeling of the regular season win kind of nullified. They went on, they won the Sugar Bowl that year. But, so, nothing really changes in the game. Some of the circumstances around the game changes, and this is a game that no matter what the schedule was going to look like in the SEC was going to be played when these two schools agreed to move to the SEC. Now we know the scheduling situation, but this is what it is, and this is how it's been for a long time.
Yep, I'm definitely excited for it. Another one of these, the 121st meeting between the teams. There's a couple of games in there that. Let's see. The 2018 game was actually in Arlington.
No, that was the second one.
And that was the second one. Okay, that was the Big 12 championship game.
Big 12 championship game.
There we go. Yeah. But
they beat Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
And Kyler Murray wouldn't shake Sam Ellinger's hand, as the story goes. He was more than willing to shake Sam Ellinger's hand after beating him in AT&T Stadium for the Big 12 title.
Well, yeah. Hopefully this doesn't end like the 95 game where it was a 24-24 tie.
Yeah, we know that won't happen. That was my first year here.
Oh, wow. I bet that's a fun way to start a tenure at a place is to go cover a tie football game.
A lot of heroes are made.
Sure.
A lot of heroes are made in this game. A lot of former Longhorns walking around town not paying for meals because of what they did in this ball game. And example number one is Peter Gardere because he beat him 4 times as a starter. Which obviously hasn't been duplicated.
No, that's going to be a tough one to duplicate. Alrighty, well, we'll end this one here. Appreciate y'all watching on KXAN Plus, YouTube, wherever you find this. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates. This has been the Horns Report. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you again very soon.